Go.
Go.
I am Constance Ruth Leonie Elliott, nee Thay. I was born on the 22nd of the 12th, 1920, to William Douglas Thay and Evelyn Amelia Lewis. My age is 95 years. I was born in William Street, Preston. I think the number was 92. I'm not sure. What's next? Is that all on that part?
Yep.
My uncle was Michael Thay. I can't remember their dates of birth, but I know a lot about my dad. I didn't know very much about Uncle Mick, except that I know he was married, and the marriage didn't last very long. He died in the hospital where I worked. I didn't know it until after his death, and I'm very upset about that. My dad was a wonderful father, beautiful man. He used to take us, he lived for his family. He would take us to the house at Flowerdale every weekend. He would take us fishing, shooting. He'd take us when the snakes rose up from the water, we'd shoot them. That was our fun. We weren't a bad shot either. What's next? Yes, he would take us up to Flowerdale, and when I was 9, he taught me to drive. And I drove until I was nearly 90 when I lost my macular degeneration set in. Anyway, my dad would take us to Flowerdale up to Thornton where all the snakes were, and plenty of snakes in Thornton, and we could shoot them. What next? Yeah, my dad was a truly wonderful man. I told you he lived for his family only. There was an unfortunate woman lived down the street, down on the corner of High Street. She was a mental case. And we couldn't go down, there was a dairy opposite. And we were never going to go down there because she used to screech. She had a voice on her like a foghorn. And if we had to go to the dairy to buy some cream, we'd go down the lane and right away from her place. That was Molly Holden. And funnily enough, later, she used to scream like you wouldn't believe it. And funnily enough, in my nursing days, she was brought into the hospital. I froze. When I saw her name, I froze. I thought, God, it couldn't be Molly Holden. She was the most beautiful person you'd ever meet. She's modern medication. Well, that was Molly Holden. One kid down the road said, I want to ride your billy cart. He said, no, I'm not allowed. And I was with my brother. And this kid said, oh, who do you think you are? I'll bash you up if you don't let me ride it. And I said, no, I'll bash you up. And he said, well, come on, over on the paddock. So we both went over on the paddock, and I belted hell out of him. Blood was pouring out of his nose. And I wanted to keep fighting him. And a man from up the street, old man Nagel, came over and pulled me off by the neck collar and said, "You've given him enough." So that was the end of him, except that we were all friends, mind you. The boy I bashed up was Jackie Newbegin, Buddy Neal, who's now a doctor on television, Easter time. And he ran away. He was frightened he was going to be bashed up. And he ran away saying, "Ruth, you've got a face like a camel's ass." So that was the end of that.
They got married, Lou.
That's the only bashing up I ever did. I was never going to tell my dad. But he used to say to me, "If anyone ever looks like belting you, make sure you get the first punch in." And I remembered that. And one Saturday morning we were going down shopping, Dad and me, in the car. And I thought, I've got to tell my dad about this. I thought he'd go crook at me. But he said, "Good on you, dude." I was happy about that. Anyway, then came our school days. We went to Sacred Heart in Preston. I was only in prep. My oldest sister was in grade 5. And Dad used to pick us up for lunch and take us home, and then we'd take us back. And the nuns was very crooked on my dad. And she said, the nun in grade 5 said, "Well, I can't beat your father, so I'm going to beat you." And she put 5 welts on her legs. They were dreadful. So we never ever went back. My dad said, "You're not going back." He sent us to Tyler Street. We finished our school, well, we didn't finish our school days there, but most of us did. But I finished my school days down at South Yarra. Can't remember the name of the school now. Yeah, I did rather well there, but I didn't do very well at state school. What else do I say? There's nothing more about my dad. No, Dad was a wonderful man. I can't say that often enough. Oh, but you don't want to know about me, do you, in the Air Force? Oh.
Yes.
Well, when I was 18, I started my nursing training. And I always wanted to be a sister in the Air Force, but I was too young. So, what did I do then? Oh yeah, I know. My dad had a friend, a doctor, and of course in those days you couldn't change jobs. He got me out of it. And 3 months later, I joined up the Air Force as a transport driver. And I had the best time of my life. Couldn't wait for another war to come. It was great. Well, after that finished, I went back and finished off my nursing training, became a sister, and I loved that too. So, but as for my dad, he supported us in everything we wanted to do, except being a crook. He was a wonderful man. He died far too young, aged 57, too young. What else can I say about Dad? He was a wonderful husband and a wonderful father, mostly to his 3 youngest children. My oldest sister, she was bit of a toff. She didn't want to be in what we did. She didn't want to drive up around the mountains and all around the place. I can't say how much my dad was such a beautiful person. He was absolutely gorgeous. I don't say that because he's not with us anymore. I say it because it was real. He was gorgeous. What else do I want? That's not my father.
No, it's you. It's you.
Do you want to know about that?
Yes.
Yep.
It's about
Oh, well. I met my father, my husband, in a pub. I was bridesmaid to a girlfriend of mine, and the bridegroom was a friend of John's. And it was a set-up for him to meet me when they had a dinner party in Melbourne. They came to Melbourne for their honeymoon. I used to bring their car home every night, take it back to them the next day. Anyway, when we had the dinner party, of course I was invited, and so was John. And I didn't like him. I didn't like him at all. So that was the finish of him, I thought, until probably 3 months later, I came home from the hospital, and who should be there talking to my mum but John, my husband. I said to him, "What are you doing here?" He said, "I've come to see you." I said, "Well, I don't think I want to see you." So anyway, after a while he left. And it was some months ago again. I came home and he was in the house with my mum. My dad had died by that time. And I said, "What do you want?" He said, "I've come to see you." I said, "Well, I'm not very keen about seeing you," because I didn't like him. But anyway, he hung around and I finally married him. So that's the story of my marriage. He turned out to be a very good father and a lovely husband, and I miss him.